Fake news doesn't pay. Unless, of course, it's ABC fake news, in which case it pays $15 million to settle a defamation lawsuit brought because of comments made by George Stephanopoulos. It was a big weekend of winning for President Donald Trump and his team. Just hours, it seemed, after a court had ordered George Stephanopoulos to sit for a 4-hour deposition to talk about, the lies he told about Donald Trump on national television, the smear campaign that he and ABC set forward with lies about Donald Trump and his court case regarding Caroll. They settled out of court. I guess they figured a 4-hour deposition by George Stephanopoulos. What's his name? Stephanopoulos? You know the one. You know the thing. I guess they figured a 4-hour deposition with him would not end up in their favor and would be disastrous in court. So they settled for $15 million. ABC, according to the New York Times, to pay $15 million to settle a defamation suit brought by Trump. The outcome of the lawsuit marks an unusual victory for President-elect Donald J. Trump in his ongoing legal campaign against national news organizations. The agreement was a significant concession by a major news organization and a rare victory for a media-bashing politician whose previous litigation efforts against news outlets have often ended in defeat. Under the terms of a settlement revealed on Saturday, ABC News will donate the $15 million to Mr. Trump's future presidential foundation and museum. The network and its star anchor George Stephanopoulos also published a statement saying they regret remarks made about Mr. Trump during a televised interview in March. ABC News, which is owned by the Walt Disney Company, will pay Mr. Trump an additional $1 million for his legal fees. The outcome, as they say, is an unusual win for Mr. Trump, who has frequently sued news organizations for defamation and frequently lost, including in litigation against CNN, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. Listen, if you get knocked down, you just get right back up and keep fighting. The comments that George Stephanopoulos made were to Representative Nancy Mace, you may remember earlier this year, during the campaign regarding the Caroll decision, when George Stephanopoulos said this.
This morning, and you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and 2 separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Yeah, that one question was the $15 million question. The $15 million question, because that's exactly what ABC News is going to be shelling out. Like we said, it's going to go in escrow. It's going to help with the presidential library down the road for when President Trump leaves office and begins construction on that. And I wonder if they're going to have like a whole Stephanopoulos wing, dedicated to the fake. Maybe that'd be a great addition. The fake news wing of the Donald Trump Memorial Library, and it could all have that clip of Stephanopoulos running on loop and saying this lie. This fabricated piece of propaganda paid for this entire wing of the President Trump Museum. I'd be very excited to see that myself. Now, there's another fear, or a growing fear among the media, that President Donald Trump will continue his legal battles against the news, and that's probably an accurate assessment. The New York Times reports Trump and his picks threaten more lawsuits over critical coverage. The small flurry of threatened defamation suits is the latest sign that the incoming Trump administration appears poised to do what it can to crack down on unfavorable media coverage. Now, this in and of itself is an inaccurate statement. It's not unfavorable media coverage. It's fake news media coverage. It's lies. It's propaganda. It's libel and slander. There are so many news agencies and organizations and quote unquote reporters out there who are just spewing half truths. ABC News, if you think about it, owns The View. And in the last month now, ABC News itself has had to have 2 legal statements read, apologies or retractions read, on The View in back-to-back weeks. One of them was about Attorney General pick of the moment, Matt Gaetz. Another one was about Pete Hegseth, who is President Trump's nominee for Secretary of Defense. Now, it's rare that any news organization would have to read a legally bound reply or retraction, but to have to do it twice in 2 weeks, that just shows a reckless disregard for truth in broadcasting, a reckless disregard for truth in journalism, if you even call the folks on The View journalists. And now with this $15 million lawsuit, it shows that ABC is definitely leading the charge in lies and slander about President Donald Trump. The legal threats have arrived in various forms. One aired on CNN, another came over the phone, more arrived in letters or emails. All of them appeared aimed at intimidating news outlets and others who have criticized or questioned President-elect Donald J. Trump and his nominees to run the Pentagon and FBI. The small flurry of threatened defamation lawsuits is the latest sign that the incoming Trump administration appears poised to do what it can to crack down on unfavorable media coverage before and after the election. I don't think it's unfavorable media coverage as much as it is just reining the media in. The media has run rampant, man. They've run roughshod over Republicans for the last 20, 30 years. They've been unchecked. They've been bolstered by the fact that their buddies in the White House, Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, Karine Jean-Pierre, all of these folks have just in fact, not only let them get away with lies and mistruths and propaganda and the total bastardization of the journalism industry in an effort to push the liberal agenda. Not only have they done that, but they haven't just let them get away with it, but in a lot of ways they inspired it and even forced them to do it. And we can just look at all of the social media posts and the Twitter files and how the government and the White House Communications Office would send lists and lists of people that they wanted the government to, or that they wanted rather Twitter to suppress or to delete or to kick off their platform altogether. One of them including the former press secretary of the United States of America, Kayleigh McEnany. So it's not that they're threatening against unfavorable coverage. It's that they're trying to remind the media in no uncertain terms what your job is. Your job is to report the truth, not make up lies to suit your own agenda. Donald Trump had a busy weekend as well because on Saturday, he was in attendance at the Army-Navy game in Landover, Maryland, and J.D. Vance was also there with his special guest, Daniel Penny, newly acquitted for all the charges. He was found not guilty on all the charges regarding to Jordan Neely and his death on the New York City subway. Daniel Penny, really a whirlwind of a week from inside a courtroom, unsure of his future, to the box at the Army-Navy game with Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and President-elect Donald Trump. A lot of other dignitaries were there as well. You can see John Thunes in the background there. I think Mike Johnson was also there. There he is. There's John Thune and his wife. There's Mike Johnson and J.D. Vance hanging out. Mike Johnson, by the way, I don't think this guy's ever taken his tie off. He seems to be, even at a football game, he seems to be wearing a tie. But there were a lot of elected officials on both sides of the Army-Navy debate when it comes to football. Of course, Mike Johnson was in the Navy. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, was also in attendance. He was a Navy man. J.D. Vance in the Marine Corps, which I guess we'll consider Navy, and Daniel Penny in the Marine veteran. So there he's on the Navy contingent as well. However, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, and Tulsi Gabbard, who's nominated for Director of National Intelligence, they were also in attendance in the box, and they are both Army veterans. So it was an interesting dynamic. Both sides were well represented. In the end, if you don't know, Navy did defeat Army in what was a little bit of a shock because I believe that Army was favored in that game. President Trump was also on Truth Social. He mentioned the drones, finally mentioned the drones. The drones in New Jersey, they're still flying around. A lot of people are getting more and more stressed about it. Donald Trump also posted a couple of things on Truth Social, which are noteworthy. One of them was a comment about the drones flying around in New Jersey, the drones. A lot of people were wondering, what is President Donald Trump's take on the drones? Does he know what the drones are? These drones are stressing out everybody in northern New Jersey and parts of New York and now Delaware and Maryland. It's still been unexplained by the government. In fact, Alejandro Mayorkas and John Kirby and anyone else who's gone on television hasn't given any explanation and claims that they're not really sure themselves what the drones are, but that there's really nothing they can do about it. Strange things for the government to admit to the American public. Donald Trump finally went on Truth Social and made his comments known. He wrote, "Mystery drone sightings all over the country. Can this really be happening without our government's knowledge? I don't think so. Let the public know, and now. Otherwise, shoot them down." Adding fuel to the fire of the debate of what to do with these drones. Do we allow vigilantes to take the matters into their own hands and shoot these drones out of the sky, seeing as how the government is incapable or unwilling to do just that? Or do we let the drones just fly around unchecked, 50 of them off the coast, flying into New Jersey, flying low over people's houses, becoming a public menace? There were reports of bird strikes hitting an airliner over the weekend. A lot of people think that may not have been a bird strike. It may have been something a little more sinister. A runway was closed at a military base because of drone activity in the area. So there's a lot of things that need to be explained by these drones, and they're not. And Donald Trump now saying shoot them down. He also, hours later, posted an unflattering meme of former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie eating McDonald's in mass with drones, like many drones, delivering the bags to him as one explanation as to where all these drone strikes are coming from. And speaking of delivery, there's a report out from Breitbart, not from the president of the United States himself, but from Breitbart, that says Trump is looking into privatizing the U.S. Postal Service. Now, this is something that President Trump was looking into in his first administration, so it's not at all surprising that this is something he'd be revamping, something he'd be revisiting. Also, when you look at the Postal Service, especially around this time of year, this is when the questions arise. This is when people say, I didn't get my Christmas cards. I didn't get my Christmas packages. The U.S. Postal Service is saying they can't guarantee delivery by this date. They're charging me an arm and a leg. I got my package, but it was broken. All kinds of problems with the USPS. And President Trump for a long time has wanted to privatize it because we know here in the United States of America, when you privatize business, that business gets better. When they have to answer to their customer base, their competition takes over, and competition in the marketplace is the best way to advance anything. Just look at how quickly our intergalactic travel and exploration business has exploded over the past few years. When the United States government and NASA was not the only player. When you had Richard Branson at Virgin Galactic, when you had Jeff Bezos at Blue, whatever that is, and when you had Elon Musk at SpaceX, you clearly saw that the advancement in space travel skyrocketed, no pun intended. And that's because of competition. When you have privatized industries and institutions that are battling for consumer dollars, they self-check and they go, okay, we need to be better, or we're not going to make a profit. Well, President-elect Donald Trump is reportedly considering privatizing the United States Postal Service. According to a report from the Washington Post, 3 people with knowledge of the matter told the outlet that Trump had been talking with Howard Lutnick, who Trump picked to serve as the Commerce Secretary, about carrying out an overhaul of the U.S. Postal Service. While Trump's plans regarding how he plans to overhaul the Postal Service were not immediately clear, one of the sources told the outlet that Trump had met with a group of transition officials and had requested their input on privatizing the agency. As Breitbart News has reported, Trump has previously criticized the U.S. Postal Service as a joke. Trump suggested that the Postal Service raise the price of their packages by approximately 4 times to help themselves get out of debt. A task force that Trump created during his first term as president suggested that the U.S. Postal Service should think about increasing the prices for shipping certain packages, according to Axios. President Donald Trump also made a play at daylight savings time, suggesting that daylight savings time was expensive, daylight savings time was unnecessary, and that daylight savings time would need to go. And he is reportedly looking into a methodology or a time or a place that can happen over the next 4 years. He, of course, will be bolstered in that effort by Marco Rubio, senator from Florida, soon to be Secretary of State, who has been pushing for years to abolish daylight savings time. And Donald Trump also took a couple of moments over the weekend to appoint a few new officers to his cabinet and his administration. One of them is Richard Grenell. I'm pleased to announce Richard Allen Grenell as our presidential envoy for special missions. Rick will work in some of the hottest spots around the world, including Venezuela and North Korea. In my first term, Rick was the United States ambassador to Germany, acting director of national intelligence, and presidential envoy for Kosovo-Serbia negotiations. Previously, he spent 8 years inside the United Nations Security Council working with North Korea and developments in numerous other countries. Rick has a BA from Evangel College and an MPA from Harvard. Rick will continue to fight for peace through strength and always put America first. Congratulations, Rick. Rick was one of the folks that was in contention, we believe, for Secretary of State, the job that ultimately went to Senator Marco Rubio from Florida. But this new special envoy or envoy for special missions is a brand new position created by President Donald Trump, and one that may or may not require Senate confirmation. which is interesting because then Rick Grenell can go right to work and he can be sent it's almost like a Green Beret or a special forces of envoys, not one that's directed to any one specific center, but a tough guy who can go into any area, lay down the law, and get the job done. So it'll be interesting to see how Rick Grenell is used in the Trump administration, where he goes first, and what kind of tasks he'll be tasked with, and whether or not, like I said, he needs to be confirmed by the Senate, or he can just get to work on day one. And then finally, President Donald Trump announced I am pleased to announce that I will appoint Truth Social CEO Devin Nunes as chairman of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, which consists of distinguished citizens from outside of the federal government. While continuing his leadership of Trump Media and Technology Group, Devin will draw on his experience as former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee and his key role in exposing the Russia hoax to provide me with independent assessments of the effectiveness and propriety of the U.S. intelligence community's activities. Congratulations, Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes was, of course, a highly respected representative, then went to work for the Trump Organization, built Truth Social into a $1 billion company, working alongside Rumble, and now is going back to government work as part of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board. So very interesting appointment, very exciting appointment, and President Trump, again, proving that he's keeping his friends close and his enemies under legal threat, which is what we expected from. We expected nothing less from a second Trump presidency. We have way more news coming up. There's a lot going on over the weekend, and if you would like to, please feel free to download and listen to our second daily podcast, Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. This one is all news, all commentary, all interviews. We delve deeper into other subjects, and if you haven't yet downloaded it, you can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. iTunes, Spotify, all over the place. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. It's live every day at noon Eastern, 11 Central, or you can download it at your leisure. Download, listen, and enjoy.